Hello, welcome back. How's everybody been? I hope y'all been doing pretty good. Oh, blah, 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 can't speak. I hope y'all been doing well. I've been doing pretty good myself. Uh, but yeah, doing a different stream today. Um, I don't know how it's gonna go. There's a book I want to read. That's why we're doing this. That's the entire reason. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I'm gonna read my book. Y'all are just gonna be here, and then I'm gonna go bed because I'm starting like an hour and a half late, and then OBS just crashed while I was setting up, so that happened as well. Um, Although before we start, something happened today at work. I just kind of wanted to mention it. I'm falling apart. So if someone wants to get me some duct tape for Christmas, that'd be great. Um, yeah, my shoulder just kind of fell off while I was at work. I was just chilling, and then all of a sudden, and now I can't move my shoulder. I eventually got it fixed, but yeah, I'm falling apart. So let us begin with the reading. I'm gonna read the book now. I need a drink already. Preface. The mathematical treatment of principles of mathematics, which is the subject of the present work has arisen from the conjugation of two different studies, both in the main very modern. On the one hand, we have the work of analysts and geometers. I'm gonna pause here because I forgot to mention something. Those of you on YouTube, you can find the book, the authors, and the publication date in the description. Just in case you're interested. Everywhere else, we'll be reading Principia Mathematica, Volume 1. Not going to try to pronounce the author's name because I'm not going to get it right. And there's two authors, and it was published in 1910. We continue. In the way of formulating the systematic, hold on, what's that word? Systematizing. In the way of formulating and systematizing their axioms, and the work of Cantor and others, such on matters as the theory of aggregates. On the other hand, we have symbolic logic, which, after a necessary period of growth, has now, thanks to Pino and his followers, acquired the technical capability, the technical adaptability, and I'm not good at reading. Maybe this stream was a bad idea. This stream was probably most definitely a bad idea. I'm not good at reading. Has acquired the technical adaptability and the logical comprehensiveness that are essential to a mathematical instrument for dealing with what have hitherto been the beginnings of mathematics. Hitherto been the beginnings of mathematics. From the combination of these two studies, two results emerge, namely, one, that what were formerly taken tactfully or explicitly as axioms are neither unnecessary or demonstrable. Two, that the same methods by which supposed axioms are demonstrated. Hold on, I forgot to pull something up for stream. I just need to be able to look at something. The supposed axioms are demonstrated will give valuable results in regions such as infinite number, which had formerly been regarded as inaccessible to human knowledge. And now I can't see chat, and I made a mess. Hence, the scope of mathematics is enlarged both by the addition of new subjects by backward extension into provinces hitherto abandoned to philosophy. The present work was originally intended by us to be comprised in a second volume of the Principles of Mathematics. With that object in view, the writing of it has begun in 1900, but as we advanced, it became increasingly evident that the subject is a very large matter, one that we had supposed, moreover, on many fundamental questions which had been left obscure and doubtful. In the former work, we have now arrived at what we believe to be satisfactory solutions, and it therefore became necessary to make our book independent of the principles of mathematics. We have, however, avoided both controversy and general philosophy, and made our statements um, dogmatic in form. The justification for this is that the chief reason in favor of any theory on principles of mathematics must always be indicative, i.e., it must lie in the fact that the theory in question enables us to deduce ordinary mathematics. In mathematics, the greatest degree of self-evidence is not usually to be found quite at the beginning, but at some later point. Hence, the early deductions, until they reach this point, give us reason, rather. If I get any words wrong, I'm blaming If I get any words wrong, I'm just gonna blame dyslexia and my inability to read. For believing that the promises, because true consequences follow them, then for believing the consequences because of they follow from the premises. In constructing a deductive system such as that contained in the present work, there are two opposite tasks which have to be concurrently performed. On the one hand, we have to analyze existing mathematics with a view to discover what premises are employed, whether these premises are mutually consistent or whether they are capable of reduction to move more fundamental premises. On the other hand, when we have decided upon our premises, we have to build up again such as much as may seem necessary of the data previously analyzed, and as many other consequences of our premises as are of sufficient general interest to deserve statement. The preliminary labor of analysis does not appear in the final presentation, which merely sets forth the outcome of analysis in certain undefined ideas and undemonstrated propositions. It is not claimed that the analysis could not have been carried further. We have no reason to suppose that it is impossible to find simpler ideas and axioms by means of which those with by by means of which those with which we start could be defined and demonstrated. All that is affirmed is the ideas and axioms with which we start are sufficient, not that they are necessary. In making deductions from our premises, we have considered it essential to carry them up to the point where we have proved as much as is true in whatever would ordinarily be taken for granted. But we have not thought it desirable to limit ourselves to strictly this task. It is customary to consider only particular cases, even when, with our apparatus, it is just as easy to deal with the general case. For example, cardinal arithmetic is usually conceived in connection with finite numbers, but it's excuse me, hold on, I got a call. For example, cardinal arithmetic. Now I can't speak. For example, cardinal arithmetic, where was I? Is usually conceived in connection with finite numbers, but its general laws of mention of distinctions between finite and infinite. Again, many of the properties commonly associated with series hold of arrangements which are not strictly serial, but have only some of the distinguished properties of serial arrangements. In such cases, it is a defect in logical style to prove for a particular case of arrangements what might just as well have been proved more generally. I need to sip my drink. An analogous approach of generalization is involved to a greater or less degree in all of our work. We have sought always the most general, reasonable, simple hypothesis from which any given conclusion could be reached. For this reason, especially in the latter parts of the book, the importance of a proposition usually lies in its hypothesis. The conclusion will often be something which, in class in a certain class of cases, is familiar, but the hypothesis will, whenever possible, be wide enough to admit many cases besides those in which the conclusion is familiar. We have found it necessary to give very full proofs, because otherwise it is scarcely possible to see what hypotheses are really acquired, or whether our results follow. Excuse me. Dr. Pepper was not a good choice of drink for this, but it's just kind of what I had. Follow from our explicit premises. It must be remembered that we are not affirming merely that such and such propositions are true, but also that the axioms stated by us are sufficient to prove them. At the same time, although full proofs are necessary for the avoidance of errors and for convincing those who may feel doubtful as to our correctness, yet the proofs of propositions may usually be omitted by the reader who is not especially interested in that part of the subject concerned, and who feels no doubt of our substantial accuracy on the matter in hand. The reader who is specifically interested in some particular portion of the book will probably find it sufficient, as regards earlier proportions, to read the summaries of the previous parts, sections, and numbers, since these give explanations of the ideas involved and statements of the principal propositions proved. The proofs in Part 1, Section A, however, are necessary, since in the course of them the manner of stating proofs is explained. The proofs of the earliest propositions are given without the omission of any step, but the work proceeds. The proofs are gradually compressed, retaining, however, significant detail to enable the reader, by the help of the references, to reconstruct proofs in which no step is omitted. The order adopted is to some extent optional. For example, we have treated cardinal arithmetic and relational arithmetic before series, but we might have treated series first. to a great extent. However, the order is determined by logical necessities. A very large part of the labor involved in writing the present work has been expended on the contractions and paradoxes which have infected logic and the theory of agree. I don't know what that word is. We have examined a great number of hypotheses for dealing with these contradictions. Many such hypotheses, I guess that's the plural, isn't it? Not hypotheses, hypotheses. Many such hypotheses have been advanced by others, and about as many have been intended by ourselves. Sometimes it has cost us several months' work to convince ourselves that a hypothesis was untenable. Drink time. In the course of such a prolonged study, we have been led, as was to be expected, to modify our views from time to time. But it gradually became evident to us that some form of the doctrine of types must be adopted if the contradictions were to be avoided. The particular form of the doctrine of types advocated in the present work is not logically indispensable, and there are various other forms equally compatible with the truth of our deductions. We have been particularized both because of the form of the doctrine which we advocate appears to be to us the most probable, and because it was necessary to give at least one perfectly defined theory which avoids the contradictions. But hardly anything in our book will be changed by the adoption of a different form of the doctrine of types. In fact, we may go farther and say that supposing some other way of avoiding the contradictions to exist, not very much of our book, except what explicitly deals with types, is dependent upon the adoption of the doctrine of types in oh. The doctrine of types in any form, as soon as it has been shown as we claim. What we have shown that it is possible to construct a mathematical logic which does not lead to contradictions. It should be observed that the whole effect of the doctrine of types is negative. It forbids certain inferences which would otherwise be valid, but does not permit any which would otherwise be invalid. Hence, we may reasonably expect that the inferences which the doctrine of types permits would remain valid even if the doctrine should be found to be invalid. Our logical system is wholly contained in the numbered propositions which are independent of the introduction and the summaries. The introduction and the summaries are wholly explanatory and form no part of the chain of discussions. The explanation of the hierarchy of types in the introduction differs slightly from that is given in asterisk 12 of the body of the work. The latter explanation is stricter and is that which is assumed throughout the rest of the book. The symbolic form of the work has been focused upon us by necessity. Without its help, we should have been unable to perform the requisite reasoning. It has been developed as a result of actual practice, and is not an ex I don't know what that word is introduct intro, introduced for the mere purpose of exposition. The general method which guides our handling of logical symbols is due to Pinot. His great merit consists not so much of his definite logical discoveries, nor in the details of his notations, excellent as both are, as in fact that he first showed how symbolic logic was to be freed from its undue obsession with the forms of ordinary algebra and theory and thereby made it a suitable instrument for research. Guided by our study of his methods, we have used great freedom in constructing or reconstructing a symbolism which shall be adequate to deal with all parts of the subject. No symbol has been introduced except on the ground of its practicality, its practical utility for the immediate purposes of our reasoning. Excuse me. A certain number of forward references, references, a certain number of forward references will be found in the notes and explanations. Although we have taken very reasonable precaution to secure the accuracy of these forward references, we cannot, of course, guarantee their accuracy with the same confidence as is possible in the case of backward references. Detailed acknowledgments of obligations to previous writers have not very often been possible. Hold on, this is bugging me. I'm back. I'm back. Detailed acknowledgments of obligations to previous writers have not very often been possible, as we have had to transform whatever we have borrowed in order to adapt it to our system and our notation. Our chief obligations will be obvious to every reader who is familiar with the literature of the subject. In the matter of notation, we have as far as possible followed Pinot, supplementing his notation when necessary by that of, I don't know how to pronounce that, or by that of, not going to try that one either. A great deal of the symbolism, however, has had to be new. Not so much, though, dissatisfaction with the symbolism of the others, as though the fact that we are dealing with the ideas not previously symbolized in all. Questions of logical analysis. Our chief debt is to the first one I did not try to pronounce. These are names, and I don't like trying to pronounce names. Where we differ from him is largely because of the contradictions showed that he, in common with all other logicians, ancient and modern, had allowed some error to creep into his premises. But apart from the contradictions, it would have been almost impossible to detect this error in arithmetic and the theory of series. Our whole work is based on that of George Cantor. I don't think I. Is that how you spell George? Really? That might not be George. I'm gonna go with George. George Cantor. In geometry, have we have had continually before the writings of V. V. Stolt, Fass, Pino, Piri, and V. Veblen. Probably butchered some of those names. We have derived assistance at various stages from the criticisms of friends, notably Mr. G. G. Berry of the Boolean Library. I don't think that's right. And Mr. R. G. Hathertree. We have to thank the Council of the Royal Society for a grant towards the expenses of printing of £200 from the Government Publication Fund, and also the syndicates of the University Press, who have liberally undertaken the greater portion of the expense incurred in the production of the work. The technical excellence in all departments of the University Press and the zeal and courtesy of its officials have time for a drink. Have maternally lightened the task of proof correction. The second volume is already in the press, and both it and the third will appear as soon as the printing can be complete. AANW BR. Cambridge, November 1910. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all look this up. I'm gonna read through this page, but I'm not gonna read all these symbols because that's gonna take it out of me. Professor Young. Excuse me. Alphabetical list of propositions referred to by name. I believe it's absolute, add. Yeah, I don't know all these. No, there's add and sum. We're gonna skip this. I'll figure it out when we get to it. Introduction. The mathematical logic, which occupies part 1 of the present work, has been constructed under the guidance of 3 different purposes. In the first place, it aims at effecting the greatest possible analysis of the ideas with which it deals, and the process by which it conducts demonstrations, and at diminishing to the utmost the number of undefined ideas and undemonstrable proposition called respectively primitive ideas and primitive propositions. From which it starts. In the second place, it is framed with a view to perfectly precise expressions in its symbols of mathematical proposition to secure such expressions and to secure it in the simplest and most convenient notation possible. Is the chief motive in the choice of topics. In the third place, the system is specifically framed to solve the paradoxes which in recent years have troubled students of symbolic logic and the theory of. I'm not going to try that one. It is believed that the theory of types, as set forth in which follows, leads both to the avoidance of contradictions and to the detection of the precise fallacy which has given rise to them. Okay, and we're at pretty much 30 minutes exactly, so I'm gonna go BRB and get us better drink than Dr. Pepper. I'll be back. And we're back. Of Of the above three purposes, the first and third often compel us to adopt methods, definitions, and notations which are complicated or more difficult than they would be if we had second. I'm going to try to bring this up so that I'm still moving. No, I can't read. I'm not trying to turn on the lamp. Never mind. Where was I? Or more difficult than they would be if the second object alone in view. This applies essentially to the theory of descriptive expressions, number 14 and 30, and to the theory of classes and relations, number 20 and 21, on the 2 points to a lesser degree on others. It has been found necessary to make some sacrifice of lucidity to correctness. The sacrifice is, however, in the main only temporary. In each case, the notation ultimately adopted through its real meaning is very complicated, has an apparently simple meaning which, except at certain crucial points, can without danger be substituted in. Hold on, I got a thing in my throat. On these 2 points, and to a lesser degree on others, it has been found necessary to make some sacrifice to lucidity and to correctness. The sacrifice is, however, in the main only temporary. In each case, the notation ultimately adopted through its real meaning is very complicated, has an apparently simple meaning which, except at certain crucial points, can without danger be substituted in, though for the real meaning. It is therefore convenient in a preliminary preliminary explanation of the notation to treat these apparently simple meanings as primitive ideas, i.e., as such introduced without definition. When the notation has grown more or less familiar, it is easier to follow the more complicated explanations which we believe to be more correct in the body of the work, where it is necessary to adhere rigidly to a strict logical order. The easier order of development could be could not be adopted. This page is blurry. This one did not get digitized as nicely. It is therefore given in the introduction. The explanations given in chapter 1 of the introduction are such as place place lucidity before correctness. The full explanations are partly supplied in succeeding chapters of the introduction, partly given in the body of the work. The use of a symbolism other than the works in all parts of the book, which aim at embodying strictly accurate demonstrative reasoning, has been forced on us by the constant pursuit of the above three purposes. The reason for this extension of symbolism beyond the familiar regions of number and allied ideas are many. The ideas are employed abstract
tilde.